True Conversations, giving the environment a voice. True would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands across Australia, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Welcome back to True Conversations, where we talk about all things natural capital. And today we've got a fascinating conversation for you. It's my pleasure to introduce Tim Knox. Tim's an Aboriginal man from Yuwallarei and Kamilaroi tribes. He was born and raised in Dirranbandi, southwest Queensland, and started his working life around the district in crop farming, sheep work and labouring roles. He spent much of his time learning from his parents, Uncle Bill Weatherall, Uncle Poddy Waters, and his cousins, which gave him significant insight into tribal knowledge and how Aboriginal people need to interact and move forward in the modern world. Tim's worked in a range of roles, including as manager of the Dirranbandi Kamilaroi Employment Aboriginal Corporation, in the Aboriginal housing sector and on Cubby Station, and in irrigation before joining the Queensland Murray-Darling Committee, or QMDC, for 12 years as Program Coordinator, Aboriginal Programs, where he established Aboriginal ranges across the Queensland Murray-Darling Basin. He's currently the Principal for Cultural Heritage at BHP, where he collaborates with traditional owners to assist BHP with mine progression. Tim's extensive experience growing up in Dirranbandi with a First Nations knowledge of the land and a deep connection to country, combined with his current role at BHP, makes for a fascinating podcast about the insights he's developed as a result of his experiences. Tim, thanks for joining us. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Tim, this series has been about exploring different perspectives on natural capital and what it means to different people in different sectors. Can I get you to describe what it means to you, what natural capital means to you?
Well, as with you just described about me, I spent a lot of my life in southwest Queensland, Dirranbandi, working with obviously close to my traditional owner family. And by the way, I have a very, very large family, both on my Yuwallarei and Kamilaroi side. So, yeah, very large family. Learned a lot of life skills, like you mentioned there, from Uncle Bill Weatherall and Uncle Poddy Waters, who's quite well known in the St George area, and a fighter for Aboriginal rights, and also provides a lot of information to various stakeholders across southwest Queensland. Spent about 12 years with them, and then spent a lot of time up in the Torres Straits on various islands. And it's great to see the way traditional life when they were still catching dugong and turtle and various crustaceans and fish, and spent a bit of time with some of the Torres Strait Islander people who become very friendly and close to me. The land is very important to all of us, especially where I come from in Dirranbandi. There we have the waterways, and over the last, I remember when I was back at school in the late mid-80s, we'd get 3 or 4 runs in the river, and we'd always have a freezer full of fish and that, but it's very hard to catch fish nowadays with the climate change and farming practices and various ways that the water is reduced. So it's very important. I'm also the chairperson of our Yuwallarei Traditional Owner Group. So we spend a lot of our time in that negotiating with government departments and moving forward. We received our native title in November 2021. So we're just a young, what we call PBC, what the government calls a PBC, Prescribed Body Corporate, and the Yuwallarei Yuwallarei Aboriginal Corporation are the governing body for that PBC, and we're working closely with various departments to bring back our rights and traditional owner rights to the land and water.
Yeah, wow, extensive work. And obviously there's, there's a lot of work that the Aboriginal Corporation would be dealing with and having to, issues that you'd be dealing with. But those ones around the environment, what sort of work is going on in that space? Is it advocating for the environment and, for those natural values and that natural heritage as well?
Yeah, of course. The corporation has a very strong stance on rights for our people. We've been dispossessed of our lands, but we have a vision and that we work together with various land managers, stakeholders, and government departments to be able to make the world a better place in our patch, but also across various other traditional owner patches as well. We have, when the old saying is, when the river is sick, everybody's sick. So we want sustainable use of the riverways, which of course cascades out to the use of various animals, whether it be livestock that we need to survive on, or our traditional totems and animals that we live. And when they're healthy, everybody's healthy. So that's what we have a vision to make sure that we work closely with our state government, our land managers, our farmers, other traditional owner groups, and especially in our patch, across the Murray-Darling Basin, and work closely with the Murray-Darling Basin Authority.
You've been working in this field for a long time. You've seen a lot over the years. What sort of change have you seen in that over the years? Is there better engagement? Is there more understanding about?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said in my intro, I work for the Queensland Murray-Darling Committee, who's a natural resource management committee, and they were part of the setup from back when the Hawke government sold Telstra and set up these land care groups and then regional groups. And of course, QMDC, Queensland Murray-Darling Committee, was a regional group, and I've seen changes. I worked there for 12 years. We started off with Jeff Penton as our CEO. Started off and we done a engagement working on country plan for traditional owners across the Queensland Murray-Darling Basin. And there were 16 traditional owner groups that were involved in developing that plan and working with QMDC. And then we had an implementation plan. And out of that implementation plan, we were awarded through the Department of Environment at the time, the Working on Country program, Aboriginal rangers. So we had 10 rangers and a coordinator, and them rangers worked with various land managers and various land tenures across the Murray-Darling Basin, the Queensland section of the Murray-Darling Basin, and work with various landowners, local government, state government entities, departments, mining companies, and various things to ensure that the traditional owners had a small input into the environment and the cultural and natural resource management of that area.
And do you think that there is a sort of more awareness and more importance being placed on bringing that traditional knowledge into land management, into management, and understanding, taking on board those eons long understanding of the land?
Yeah, I think so. And I can only say for myself and what I think and what I've seen, I reckon over the last 6 or 7 years, since there's been several traditional owner groups in the Queensland Murray-Darling Basin area that have native title rights now, and the right to negotiate and the right to speak for and on behalf of that country. Our traditional owners have a lot of traditional knowledge and a lot to share, and I don't really know of one traditional owner group that doesn't want to share and work with our stakeholders. Our group, we're keen to work with our stakeholders, but we're keen to also to ensure that our traditional owners, our 27 apical families, have the rights to negotiate, the rights to act, and also one of our major wins when we won our native title was the rights to hunt and fish and use the natural resources as we have in the past. But I think over the last number of years, other groups, stakeholders outside of the traditional owners are slowly starting to understand that traditional knowledge is a good thing. One of the main things that our Aboriginal rangers and various groups across the Queensland Murray-Darling Basin are doing now is the use of cultural burning. We run a project and worked in partnership with the Blonshire Council, and they were fantastic working with not only our Aboriginal owners, our traditional Aboriginal rangers, but our traditional owners on various spots. And it was like a 4-year program that was run by the Blonshire Council, and they work with as pilot areas. So we really hope that takes off a little bit for, I know up in the east part of the state, the Millmerran Shire, in the Millmerran Shire, the Millmerran Land Care Group, who's quite active, they quite often use our rangers and other traditional owners for traditional cultural burns. So learning about the way that our ancestors and our older people managed the land, back before colonisation and in early colonisation.
Yeah, and there's some deep knowledge there, isn't there? Sort of I know on the Murray-Darling Basin, the just knowledge about that's been handed down about the way the waterway works and what it's been like over a very long period of time, hundreds and hundreds of years. Sort of bring that depth of knowledge as well.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, there has been in the last 100 years of strong disconnect from our traditional knowledge to our generation, but we still learnt from some of the knowledge keepers and still trying to practice and learning ourselves too. Once our people were dispossessed, we didn't have the use of the lands in which our older people had. Some of the early settlers came, and then our people lost the use of the land, but still had the knowledge and still passed it down. But there are a lot of settlers that recorded a lot of that knowledge too, so you can still go back and find some of that information, which was, our people weren't written texts type of people, but just pass it down through the dreaming and through our knowledge. So we're still working to get that, and most traditional owners or Aboriginal peoples on the east coast, and not so much the north part of Australia, still in that type of mould, still learning from written texts that were recorded, which we're grateful of. And but we once you learn how to from some of the practitioners, the fire practitioners, how to do cultural burning, it just stays in us. It's just like there's not too many Aboriginal people around that can't paint or do artwork. It's just ingrained in you, and same with some of our traditional knowledge.
Yeah,
there's interesting you talk about First Nations knowledge. There is actually a project that's part of the One Basin CRC around First Nations data sovereignty and how to maximise the benefits of First Nation owned or administered data sets. And I think that's a really important addition. And I think on top of that, there was talking about a native grains project where it's talking about cultivating and harvesting of native grains and sort of learning from the First Nations knowledge around this. And I think they're really important projects to be incorporated into the One Basin CRC. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. You talk about some of the grains. I get very excited when the native millet was one that our people used out home. The Yawalaree, Kamilaroi, all the men and Angie and the Kuma and Guamu people. A lot of us used that native millet because it came used to be prevalent across the Colgall floodplain. And, when I see some of that, but it's quite exciting, and to remember that our old people used to grind that in the nardoo stones and grinding stones and make flour and bread and various things. The grass tree is another one that I was just talking to a guy that has a bit of land west of Toowoomba, southwest of Toowoomba, and there's a lot of grass trees on there. And we're talking about the use of the sap. The sap is black, but once you burn it, melt it, and mix it with a bit of ash, it can go rock hard. It's unbelievable. It's concrete style. So our people used to hold the spearheads on the spears and also the axe heads with that native grass sap. And there's things like that. But even the way that we catch fish, there's methods that our people used to have. You can go down to Brewarren in northern New South Wales and see the fish traps there. We used to have some up in St George, north of the upstream of the township, which are covered over now. Of course, you have the two weirs, Lake Beardmore and also the Jack Taylor. Well, since the silt and that they're covered over, our people used to harvest the fish. And then you talk about the rock wells, there's many a rock well around that area. Used to be a walking track from Brewarren. My Uncle Bill used to tell me that they came up the Colgall and across to the Narran River and up to Durrumbandi and then walked east. And about every 12 mile there'd be a rock well. There's one just out of Durrumbandi, and then you'd get to the another river, the Mooney River, and then near the Wingallen there's another rock well there, and then another one at Gradual, and then there's walking up to the Bunya Mountains for the festival. So them dreaming tracks are still there, and but we don't have the use of them. But that type of knowledge. There's a whole bunch of the foods that we ancestors lived off. But the use of the grains, like you say, we have these genetically modified grains now, which it's a bit of a shame that we're so reliant on that, but it'd be great if we went back to some of the grains that were used by our older people.
Absolutely. And, just layers and layers of information and, that's slowly being rebuilt as well. What do you see as the greatest challenge for natural capital for, the sector that values this?
I think the challenge is understanding as an Aboriginal man, non-Aboriginal people understanding the traditional ways, and like we always say, we're not here to bite you. We're here to, we're here for the long haul, and we've been here some 60,000 years, and we'll be around a lot longer than most, and in the future. So collaborating together, but having a sharing culture. We have a couple of people in our group that aren't happy with some of the, pharmaceutical groups, for instance, taking our cultural knowledge for our medicines and using it, but have an understanding that this came from ancient Australia, the country that we all love, but understand that where it came from. Not just take it for the greed of people. We all need to live in this world. We all need to live happily. We don't have an infinitive life, so to pass it on to other younger generations. And of course, the younger generations have changed now. There's various methods of recording some of the information, keeping it for thing, because, like I said earlier, we weren't text people. We were passed down from generations to generations, but we need to think about a new way of and move with the times and record so that 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 generations ahead will understand that this is how the older people lived. But understanding, I think, is the one of the things that if people don't want to understand, then we're doomed, I think.
And it's a key part of the work you do, isn't it? Is that collaborating and sharing that and gaining that understanding, I guess, you know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, I work in an industry that's quite well known for some of the damages to the land. But, you know, with this role, my job is to work with our traditional owners that the company works with to get an understanding. And truth telling is another high point that needs to be addressed. Understanding that the traditional owners have eons of connections to that country, and the truth telling about that needs to be believed.
It's an interesting balance for you, I imagine, personally, to be, you know, sort of walking in the two worlds, I guess, in a way, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But as coming from a team that has knowledge in the background, Aboriginal knowledge of working with communities, and, you know, we don't shy away from the hard things by telling our company either. We need to be truthful, truth tell, like I said to and same with my own traditional owner group. You know, we need to tell stakeholders and land managers and that, you know, everyone needs to understand, and we also have to be a part of that too. We have a word in Gamilaroi called Winangali. It's called to look, learn, and listen. So that's what we prescribe to, whether it's us going to learn about something, or we think that some of the stakeholders should Winangali as well. Look, learn, and listen.
After listening to your bio, I think you know, your work experience, I think past experience puts you in a really good position to be in that role. You know, I think it's a really important and critical role that you're playing there. But I think, you know, your track record, you know, puts you in good stead to take on that role. But do you find it challenging at times, sort of, you know, trying to reconcile the needs of the mining industry versus your, you know, traditional owner needs and your values? Is that difficult for you sometimes, or?
Oh yeah, you know, just like any job, it's difficult if you don't consider all aspects of it. Then it's difficult for everyone. You know, it's just like a jockey getting on a horse. If you don't understand the horse and that skill set, and look at both parts of the motion, then it's very hard. And same in my job, it can get hard, but it's very rewarding as well. When you get the traditional owners thanking you and working for working with them, providing their input, and also when you get the company also saying thanking you. I have a great team, a great leader, and other team members that have the same constitutions as me, that we're there to not push one part of the barrow, but we're there to work together and try and be the conduit to connect the traditional owners with the business that I'm in.
So you mentioned the establishment of the Aboriginal Rangers program with QMDC. Fantastic initiative. And interestingly, I met a gentleman called Uncle Bunya up at the Bunya Mountains the other day. You mentioned the Bunya Mountains you alluded to, and he was saying that the Aboriginal Rangers program is alive and well up there, and, you know, they're getting young people up, and I think it's fantastic that they're passing on that traditional knowledge. You know, and what better place to do it than the Bunya Mountains? But do you know, has that program expanded? Has it taken off? Is it still growing across?
Yeah, no, the Bunya Mountains are a great group of rangers as well. You know, they've been good. So there was only the Bunya Mountains and QMDC. We have a base in Inglewood and St. George.
Right.
But just this round, I don't think it's been announced. It may have been in the last this week.
Yes.
But I understand that there are 3 other traditional owner groups or traditional owner run ranges being awarded in the Queensland Murray-Darling Basin, which is fantastic. We're happy about that. We'll have other counterparts. But we work right across the Queensland Murray-Darling Basin, our ranges. That's part of our remit for our funding, and happy to and can't wait to assist them and show them some of our lot of our wrongs and some of our successes. So, only too happy. Yeah. If I can go back to the rivers and talk about the ranges, and one of the, and unfortunately this year our senior ranger passed away. He's been with us for 12 years, had been, and, such a great man. I won't mention his name, but, he was such an integral part of our ranger program and worked with everyone. But one of the programs that he was very proud of is the carp trapping. As we know, European carp are quite a destructive species in our rivers, and the Queensland Murray-Darling Rangers over the last 10 years had worked with the Department of Fisheries, and I can't think of the gentleman's name that invented the European carp traps, but the Queensland Murray-Darling Rangers trap 3 or 4 times a year, and we can get up to, I remember one set of traps right at the mouth of the Narran there. In one night, they got 1,100 European carp just from the one trap. Wow. So, they're one of the programs, and that we really want to work with the other funded ranger programs now to assist them in developing that, because European carp is a very destructive species, and for our native fish, for our waterways, for our river health, there are introduced species that just gone wild, and that's one of the programs that our former senior ranger was very proud of, and a lot of the other projects that we did. Some of the environmental ones, we had someone in Miles release tip some goldfish into the river there. Can't think of the river offhand, but one of the Dogwood Creek, yes. So when they released the goldfish, but they also released the floating little ornament weed out of the thing, and it just took over the whole of Dogwood Creek. Our rangers worked there for at least 4 years to rid that system of that weed. I'm not quite sure of the thing. Other species too that we worked on. The Parthenium is another big one that's come down the river system.
The Tim, can I ask you, what do you see as the greatest opportunity in the natural capital sector going forward?
Oh, look, I've mentioned river health often. I think that's the main challenge, and that would be the greatest challenge, but it would be the most rewarding if we could satisfy all stakeholders that reliant on the Queensland sector of the Murray-Darling Basin for irrigation, for cropping, for river health, for environmental purposes, for cultural purposes. If for some reason someone came up with a plan that could satisfy everyone and satisfy the environment and the cultural aspects of the river health, that would be an outstanding, achievement and fantastic for everyone.
Yeah, it's still a huge task. Where would you love to see it all in 5 years in terms of natural capital?
Working on country for Aboriginal people, the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, any of the land care plans, the cropping and irrigation plans, all meld together so that everyone can live. And there's various places right across Queensland. You have the Burdekin, you have the other areas that reliant on water. If there was a great plan for everyone, in the next 5 years that all can make the foggy future a little bit less foggy, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in water, it's just such a crucial element of it all, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Of course, if you live on the west side of the Great Divide, ours run to the out in South Australia, and we all rely on it. A lot of the east coast of Australia, and if you live north bit, it runs into Lake Eyre, and if Lake Eyre's healthy, and the Murray-Darling River's healthy, and then on the eastern side, if the water runs off into the reef, and if that's healthy, then everyone should be happy, And then we've got other parts of Australia as well, the Ord area and up in the Northern Territory and in the Cape. If we treat water with the greatest respect it should be treated and used, and then the whole of the country is happy.
Is there one key takeaway that, if you were to bring it down to one key point, for natural capital, what would it be, Tim?
I think, and I've mentioned a few times now, as an Aboriginal man, I think the key takeaway would be that trust in each other and trust in traditional knowledge. And like I said earlier, we don't bite very hard, but we do have, a lot of knowledge that Western science hasn't yet tapped into. Mm-hmm. And then we also have the will to and the want and the need to provide this information if it's respected properly. So I guess trust in traditional knowledge and trust in respect. In 2010, I won a Churchill Fellowship, which gave me, through the Churchill Foundation, and I went to the States to work across various Native American groups. It was the fellowship was called Native American Cultural and Natural Resource Management. So I spent various 9 months. I went to Pendleton in Oregon, to Seattle in the Puget Sound with the Native Americans there, the Puyallup. And then I went to Montana, up to I wanted to see Glacier National Park. And then I went to North Dakota, to a Native American tribe there in a place called Newtown, North Dakota. They were just coming into the oil expansion then. So there was a lot of oil there, and I wanted to work with them on fire management. So that was a great. And then I went to a place in Wisconsin called, it was with the Menominee tribe, and I stayed there with them. They have a lot of forestry revegetation. They own the sawmill and harvesting of pine and revegetation. So I spent some time there, but also there they have very big sturgeon there. So they were harvesting sturgeon for caviar and various things there. And then from there I went to Michigan. I spent 3 weeks at the Michigan State University, and then I went up to northern Michigan to a place called Sault Ste. Marie, north of there, called Bay Mills, Brimley in Bay Mills, and have a very large connection with some families there. And they were one of the first tribes to get native rights in Native American casinos. So they have a very large, they have an income from the casinos, but they have their fisheries department there. They have their language department. They have their community schools, which is similar to a TAFE. And then they have also their elders, where they still teach their tribal ways there. And then I came back to Australia, and then a year or so later, I got a job with the Queensland Museum. I was the repatriation manager with the Queensland Museum before I went to my current position, but worked there as repatriation manager, and quite a harrowing job, and very sad because the Queensland Museum holds 680 ancestral remains of persons right across Australia. So my job was to work with the database and provenance where some of them came from.
Incredible. What and you know, such a huge range of experiences that you had on that as well. Is there a key thing that you brought back that that you learned from that you've applied to your work going forward?
Oh yes, yeah. The Native Americans are suffering and have felt for many years the same as Aboriginal people. We have a lot of similar customs, a lot of similar traits that we do, and try and they suffered a lot of racism as in Australia.
Yeah, it's a good note to finish on.
Yeah, that's
too,
a
isn't it?
great close. You mentioned your name Jeff Penton before, so you can blame Jeff for topping your book today. But it was great recommendation, and thank you. You come with highly regarded, so thank you.
Yeah.
No, he's a good man. He's a good man.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tim. Fascinating conversation. Sort of ranging across a huge number of important elements of natural capital and our environment, and really all of our well-being going forward, and the importance of that collaboration and connection,
and the traditional knowledge, I think, was a big one for me about what it is, and the fact that the willingness and openness to share that knowledge, because we've got to share that knowledge.
Yeah, and the importance of truth telling as well. I think it's obviously a big part of that too.
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to hear what you make of my conversation. And,
thanks, mate.
Thanks, Jim. That's fantastic.
Truey Conversations is brought to you by Truey. We create data-driven web applications that give the environment a voice. I'm Bonnie Marsh, co-founder of Truey, and I really hope that you've enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you very much for being here with us, and I look forward to seeing you next time.